Hey everyone, and thanks for jumping back into the cryptoverse. Today we're going to talk about Cardano and its native token ADA, and we're going to investigate whether a $50 ADA is theoretically possible this market cycle. If you guys like the content, please subscribe to the channel. Give the video a thumbs up. Also check out the Telegram channel, which you can find a link to in the description below. Now, the first thing you're probably thinking is, this seems very uncharacteristic of Ben to throw out such a preposterous number that's almost assuredly not going to happen. And I would agree with you, it is uncharacteristic. But the reason I'm doing it is because there's a lot of people, all of a sudden, they have seemingly come out of nowhere, that are throwing around a $50 ADA. Not like it's likely going to happen, but almost like they are saying it will happen this market cycle. So I was doing some digging and trying to figure out why they thought this. And sure enough, there's a lot of major YouTube channels shilling a $50 ADA in the short term. Okay, in the short term. And if you followed this channel long enough, you will know I am a Cardano bull. Okay, through and through, I've been promoting ADA on this channel for a long time. Now, if you don't believe me and you think that I'm going to come at this from an unbiased, or from a biased perspective, I should say, here's a video I published on ADA on March 18th of 2020 when it was trading at 2.5 cents. At 2.5 cents, we were talking about ADA on this channel, covering it, talking about how it probably has it's probably going to do very well this market cycle. I called it a racehorse, one of my primary hedges against Ethereum, and that buying ADA at 2.5 cents was a steal. So if you think that I'm not a Cardano bull, go back and watch the old videos I have when we were talking about ADA at 2 cents, at 3 cents, at 4 cents, all the way up to where it is today. So I am an ADA bull through and through. Now, the problem is that a lot of these channels that are shilling a $50 ADA, I almost guarantee you, if you go back to their channel, back when ADA was trading at 2 cents, almost assuredly you will not find a single video on Cardano. What they're doing is they're riding the hype train and the clickbait train, and they're going for the views and at the expense of what you may think is theoretically possible. Well, I'm going to show you why I do not think a $50 ADA this market cycle is even remotely possible in any way, shape, or form. Okay, and I'll show some. I'll try to look at it in the most bullish light possible. Again, I'm an ADA bull. I was accumulating it all the way down to 2 cents. You have to recognize that for it to go to 50 bucks, that's a 2,500x in one market cycle. A 2,500x. Okay, this is getting a little bit far out there. Now, the first thing we should say is, if you look at the ADA USD valuation, as we know, it has gone up approximately 60x from the bottom in March. So it's already gone up a lot. That's why there's a lot of people interested in it. A lot of major YouTubers are shilling it like crazy, and they only recently started doing it, or in the last few months, maybe since January or December, when it really started to pick up steam. Now, the people that were buying it over here, by the time it could theoretically reach a $50, these people will literally be up 2,500x. Imagine the selling pressure well before that to get there. Now, the counter argument, the best counter argument I could come up with, because I wanted to challenge my own position and say, well, what if you consider this, right? The best counter argument would be to look at Ethereum and to recognize that Ethereum from the low, I mean, we're not going to count the launch because that's when it just gets on the exchange and everything's crazy. But the low, if we were to go to 44 cents to the high of over $1,400, around $1,440, that represented a 3,500x in one market cycle. So that would be the best evidence to say that maybe a 2,500x for ADA is possible this market cycle. However, I'm going to show you why I don't think that's possible. First of all, if you look at the market cap of Ethereum back on that day where Ethereum was at a low down here in October of 2015, if you look at where it was then, the market capitalization was at only 32 million. Okay, only 32 million. The low for ADA on March 13th, which we would be comparing to, was already at 737 million. So the market cap of ADA at its low this market cycle was more than an order of magnitude higher than Ethereum's the cycle before. And in fact, going from 32, I mean, it was like more than 20x. Okay, this was more than a 20x from Ethereum's market cap bottom to where ADA's was. So Ethereum theoretically had a lot more room to shine because its market cap at the time was so much lower, and there was a lot less, confidence in the space at the time. So investing in Ethereum at 50 cents was a lot riskier because the asset class as a whole was not panned out in any way, shape, or form, and there was a lot of uncertainty with what was going on. So with that in mind, you have to consider that Ethereum was starting with a much lower market cap than ADA. Okay, that's just a fact. And because of that, we know that the higher the market cap, the harder it is to move. Therefore, for ADA already to go up on basically to have an ROI that is like challenging what Ethereum's was last market cycle, where Ethereum saw like a 3500x. By the way, the only way you would have seen a 3500x is if you literally bought it like 40 something cents and it was only there for a very short period of time. But for ADA to go up 2500x, that's essentially what Ethereum did last market cycle, but ADA's market cap was 20 times higher than Ethereum's when it started. So the people that are shilling a $50 ADA this market cycle are simply not considering any type of realistic future scenario. It's clickbait, and it's not based on much of anything, in my opinion, right? In my opinion. If you look at the current valuation of ADA, it's at $1.20, $1.21. Now, if we were to talk about realistic projections for ADA, could I see it going to $5? Yes, of course. Could I see it going to $10 this market cycle? I think it might be possible, right? I think it might be possible. But to go to a $50 ADA would represent a market capitalization. If we go to, say, the current market cap of all the different cryptocurrencies, if you look at this, it's already at 38 billion. So for it to go up another, let's say 40 billion, for it to go up another 50x, we would be looking at approximately 2 trillion. So the likelihood that ADA could make up a market capitalization of 2 trillion this market cycle, when the price of Bitcoin, the market cap of Bitcoin, is currently only at 1 trillion, is highly unlikely. Now, the only piece of evidence that you can maybe try to counteract that, which I've showed before, is if you look at the market cap of Ethereum at the peak, it was 135 billion, and at the low, back in 2015, it was much less, I should say, because I mean here it was 135 billion. If we change this, let me do it to this one over here. So we're gonna get rid of this one because we don't need 2020 anymore. But if we go back to say 2015, and let's just go back to like maybe October 13th or something, you can see the market cap then of Bitcoin was only 3 billion. So in fact, Ethereum was able to go to a market cap of 135 billion, which was a lot higher than Bitcoin's market cap at the time. So that would be the best evidence you could say, but that was comparing the beginning of the cycle. Where you're now comparing it up to being ADA already being up approximately 60x. So it's not really a fair comparison because that's comparing the very beginning of the cycle for Ethereum to Bitcoin, and then now comparing it to where ADA is now with respect to Bitcoin. Well, ADA is already up 60x. If you wanted to say look at it back on in March of 2020, you could look at the ADA market capitalization and say, okay, well here it's only 737 million. And the idea of it going to, where Ethereum's was at 14 billion, okay, Ethereum's was at 14 billion. Back then, we already know that ADA has passed that by 3x. So you can see how quickly the times can change. And Bitcoin's over here was only at 101 billion. So the argument that, okay, well, Ethereum sort of did that thing where it went to a market cap higher than Bitcoin's original market cap earlier in the cycle. Well, it's possible ADA does the same thing because it started at 737 million or so, 737 million. At the time, Bitcoin's was only at 100 billion. And today, ADA is already at 38 billion. So I would say it's possible, there's a high probability that ADA could go to a market capitalization higher than the Bitcoin market capitalization when we started, when we hit our low on March 13th. I mean, there was a lower low back in 2018 for Bitcoin, but if you just look at, say, the March 13th low, Bitcoin was at 101 billion. So we, of course, I mean, if ADA went up another 2.5x or so, it would be above Bitcoin's market cap from earlier in 2020. But we've said this before, as the asset class as a whole goes up, we would expect the market capitalizations of everything to go up with it, but that would imply that Bitcoin's market cap is going through the roof in and of itself. Because back then, the market cap of Bitcoin was around 101 billion. Today, though, it's at 1 trillion. So the argument that people are saying for ADA to get to $50, they're saying that the market capitalization would have to go to approximately 2 trillion, which at this phase in the cycle is more than double Bitcoin's current market cap, and we're nowhere close to the bottom of the cycle. This doesn't make any sense at all, right? These are the $50 ADA price prediction for this market cycle is almost assuredly nothing more than clickbait garbage that is not going to pan out in any way, shape, or form. And I think that it new money to the space really does deserve to understand why a $50 ADA this market cycle is almost assuredly not going to happen. Now, if you're talking about in future cycles, it's possible, okay? So if you were to say, well, what about a $50 ADA next market cycle? So let's say we have a major market cycle. Let's say ADA goes up to $10 or something crazy, and then it crashes back down to $1 or $2 for a year or two, and then trends back up from there. Could it go to $50 then for a future market cycle if maybe the market capitalization of Bitcoin is going to 10 or 20 trillion? Yes. Okay? If Bitcoin's market cap is, say, at 10 or 20 trillion, then I would assume that ADA could probably reach a market cap of 2 trillion, which would correspond to approximately a $50 ADA. So, again, I will remind you that if you think I'm just being bearish about ADA, that is simply not true. I've been a big ADA bull. Again, here's a video of me covering it on March 18th, 2020, when it was literally trading at 2.5 cents. Around that time, it was approximately 2.5 cents. So the argument that I'm just trying to spread FUD or anything like that is not true. I'm a big ADA bull. And again, go look at these channels, see if they were covering Cardano back then. They probably weren't. So since they're starting to cover it now, they have to basically say, okay, well, now that we're covering it when it's already up 50x, now we have to say it's going to go up another 50x. Otherwise, how am I going to get my audience interested in it? But this is not doing you guys a favor. So I just want to put this video out there just to show you that some price predictions are just not worth anything because they're not grounded on anything rational at all. And there's other channels, by the way, that have covered Cardano throughout the market cycle, even at the lows, and they're basically, I think they would mostly be in agreement with this type of analysis. Crypto Crow, he's a guy who mainly covers Cardano, and I'm pretty sure he would also say that a $50 ADA this market cycle would just be absolutely ridiculous, and he's one of the biggest ADA bulls I know. So there's being grounded in reality and trying to make rational investments, and then there's chasing FOMO hype that will never quite be realized this market cycle. And if you think that it has to go to a $50 ADA because some random YouTuber told you it had to, then I don't think you're doing yourself any favors. If you guys like the content, make sure you subscribe to the channel, give the video a thumbs up. I know this was a slightly different video than normal, but I was just somewhat frustrated with all the shilling on the channel that I saw about, oh, ADA's going to $50. I'm like, well, where the hell's that coming from? Because nothing about ADA's price history and projections would make us think that it could reach remotely close to $50 ADA this market cycle. Again, next market cycle, assuming ADA is able to continue to capture a lot of the market cap for the niche that it's trying to carve out, sure, maybe next market cycle. This market cycle, I would say a snowball's chance in hell, right? It likely not going to happen. If it does happen, I'll be a very happy person, believe me. But I'm just telling you guys, as someone who is buying ADA at 2 cents, at 3 cents, at 4 cents, I don't imagine it's going to get anywhere close to $50 this market cycle. But let's see where it goes the next market cycle. Thank you guys for tuning in. Subscribe to the channel if you like the content. Give the video a thumbs up. Also, check out the Telegram channel in the description below. Remember, we have the premium list altcoin season sale. If you want access to that, check out the description below as well. Thank you guys for tuning in. I'll see you next time. Bye.